Now, listen, last night we've already said, Dan Bardell, what a brilliant night for you at Villa Park. Blowing away Club Brugge in the end. Wasn't the best first half, was it?
No, it wasn't.
But by the second half, that was Villa at their absolute best, albeit against 10 men, wasn't it?
Yeah, first half, it's like Villa didn't adapt their game plan to Brugge going down to 10 men. And to be honest, Villa have got an abhorrent record against teams with 10 men recently. Ipswich went down to 10 men and we had to come from behind and battle back to get a 1-1. So Villa haven't been great against 10 men over the last few years. But the difference was Marco Asensio coming on at half-time. The options and the variety Villa have in their kind of front four now is frightening. And to be able to bring on a player of the level of Marco Asensio into that game, he just took advantage of the fact that Brugge had 10 men and was drifting into all kinds of space. And every time he seems to pick up the ball, he seems to look like he's going to make something happen. And he's been prolific so far, 7 goals already for Marco Asensio. Yeah, he seems to have scored doubles every game that he plays. He hasn't actually started every game either. So I think he's already Villa's third top scorer. So bringing in a player like that into a Champions League game, these are days that I could only have dreamed of.
He's got so much pedigree in the Champions League as well. When you look at his scoring record in the knockout stages, he scored in semi-finals, he scored in finals. I mean, that to have a player that exciting, you're right. Does he feel like a player? And I don't mean this with disrespect, where you're there like, I can't believe he plays for my club. I can't believe he's wearing the Villa colours. Yeah,
100%. A little bit the same with Rashford as well, because these over the years have been high-level elite players playing at the top level for a long, long time. To watch them playing for Villa is absolutely incredible. I mean, Asensio could have scored 4 last night, quite easily come away with the match ball and having scored 4 goals. Rashford's not off the mark yet, but he just looks bright, hungry, pacey, powerful, everything that probably the Manchester United fans have wanted him to be over the last few years. And although he hasn't scored, he seems to pick up an assist, and every time he plays, and he's created the most chances in the Premier League since he's joined Villa, the high level chances anyway. So, so far in January, Villa look like they've built a good side that can now challenge.
I was going to say, do you think Rashford will they'll exercise the buy clause and they'll get him?
I think if it's going well, Villa will try, and I think Marcus Rashford would be a bit naive to not stay, given that Emery has improved every player at Aston Villa over the few years.
Surely,
I think if he does well, I wouldn't rule out a Manchester United callback and then potentially utilising him.
I think it's done there for him.
I wouldn't rule it out, but I agree.
He's had his manager compare him to the 63-year-old goalkeeping coach in terms of his effort.
That's not quite right. He didn't.
He said he'd rather have him on the bench, didn't he?
He didn't say than Rashford either. He just said I'd rather have players that perform in training. I'd rather have my 60-year-old goalkeeping coach than someone who doesn't do that.
Yeah, I just wouldn't completely rule it out. But then I think there'll also be interest from abroad as well. But if he does well, I can't see why you'd want to leave. I mean, you're playing the latter stages of the Champions League. I think what Villa do, whether they qualify for the Champions League again, will be massive, because I think they'll sign Asensio regardless. The noise coming out of Asensio's camp and Villa's camp
and
around
the price
Asensio,
is amazing.
yeah, 15 million is brilliant. So it started really well for him. I think they'll sign him regardless. But we all know Rashford's wages. Obviously, he'd have to take a pay cut to come to Villa. But even with that pay cut, you'd still be the highest paid player at the club. So I think a lot will depend on the next few months and how Villa go. But I think if they qualify for the Champions League and Rashford's a big part of that, they win something, he'd be silly not to.
Is there any concern on your part, though, that we're seeing Rashford play brilliant stuff at the moment, really, energised, motivated, but he's doing that because he's got a point to prove? And is there any concern that once he gets a 3, 4, 5-year contract, you might see the Rashford from the last couple of seasons where, those levels aren't quite there? Do you worry about that? Do you worry that maybe he's basically playing a contract season, if you like?
I do think Rashford was a kind of a product of the environment at Manchester United, and I do think whilst everyone was underperforming there, he seemed to be the one that got the brunt of the criticism, and I'm aware that's what happens when you're an academy player. You're on the wage that he's on. You're obviously going to take the brunt of the criticism there, but I did feel it was a little bit unfair.
Over the top, for sure.
Yeah, and he's been a target in the press for a number of years. I think coming to Villa and having the fresh environment has revitalised him. He's working with a manager who he knows will make him better, and already you're seeing signs of that. Early days, I know, but the signs are there. I think Marcus Rashford is such a high-level player, and I think actually he's energised Emery as well. I think Asensio and Rashford coming in has energised Unai Emery. I think he was getting a little bit frustrated. We've been a bit inconsistent in the Premier League this season, a lot more so than last season. Those two coming in, Emery loves and you've seen it in the past in Spain as well, and other teams he's managed. He loves working with that type of player that's kind of fell away a little bit and maybe not quite reached their potential.
A point to prove.
So I think they've both still got levels to go at Villa, and I'm hoping they hit them by the end of the season.
How far can they go then in the Champions League? It is PSG up next. There's so much romance about that in history, obviously, given that it's Emery's former club, but we've seen the job they did on Liverpool. How much confidence are you taking into that next game?
It's a completely different tie, isn't it? Just because PSG completely outplayed Liverpool over the two legs, playing Villa is going to be a very different proposition. You'll remember at the start of the season, I predicted that Villa might get to the semi-finals, and I did that purely because of the manager.
Yeah, I can't seem to find that.
And I'll find it, don't worry about that. He got Villarreal there, didn't he? Who were probably even lesser fancied than Villa at the time. So he's got that pedigree. I don't fear anyone. And I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that Villa could go all the way in the Champions League. But I'm aware that this PSG team is a scary proposition. Their front three and their midfield three.
And their bench as well. Yeah, the depth they've got.
Bringing that Doué on is just absolutely ridiculous.
But you say there, why not, Mark? Did you genuinely think Villa could get themselves that far?
They were phenomenal against Liverpool. I think it was one of the highest quality games I've seen for a couple of seasons.
My favourite game of the season, the first leg.
I mean, I just thought that, first leg especially, but over the both legs, I thought PSG and Liverpool were excellent, but PSG just looked like... They just look superb across every position. They work well as a team. However, they didn't blow anyone away.
No.
They didn't put away a lot of their chances. Dembele, as good as he is, has got it in him to miss a couple, let his head drop a little bit. If you have one of those games against Villa at Villa Park, I can see Villa scoring a couple against them. Look, I don't think I would have Villa as my favourites.
No, nor would I.
But we just saw what I bet on. My bets don't win, so I don't know anything. But why not? Yeah, I mean, I would not put it past them. I think it would be a shock, but it wouldn't be a huge surprise.
Yeah. I think much will depend on the first leg. Villa obviously go away to PSG first. If they come away with even a narrow defeat, Villa are a completely different proposition at Villa Park. The atmosphere last night, again, was incredible. It has been every single Champions League game. We've only lost 2 games at home all season, and one of them was a Carabao Cup defeat where we played our third team probably against Crystal Palace. So at Villa Park, since Emery's been there, Villa have been really, really strong. So if they can manage the 2 legs in the right way, I do think it'll be very, very close.
Yeah, when you look at your season as a whole as well, I mentioned to you that I was at your the game against Crystal Palace. They were absolutely battered 4-1, I think as low as 10th in the table.
Bogey team.
At that point, big bogey team. But the away form was absolutely dreadful as well. And at that point, it felt like a critical moment in the season, given the other competitions you were in. Now you fast forward a bit, they're very much in that race for the top 5. They're in the quarter-finals of the FA Cup, let's not forget as well, against Championship opposition. And they're heading into the quarter-finals of the Champions League. When you're realistic as a fan, what do you want at the end of this season that you think Villa can achieve?
I still want to keep pushing towards top 5. I look at the teams on paper, and I think Forest will get third. After that, there's no reason why Villa can't finish 4th or 5th on paper if they time the run right. The team that's going to qualify for the Champions League, or the teams that qualify for the Champions League, 2 of them are going to be the ones that time their run correctly. Yeah. It feels to me that Villa are just starting to peak. They won away at Brentford at the weekend. Obviously, you've mentioned the other stuff they've done. But it's the FA Cup that I really, really want. I'd love to win a trophy. You'll feel the same about me as a Newcastle fan going to a Carabao Cup final. Winning a trophy would mean everything to this Villa fan base.
But that's funny, Dan, because I remember it was last season when you said that you'd rather get top 4 than get one of those trophies. Now that you've had that experience of the Champions League, is that what's changed that? Because what's interesting about that is that I remember you saying at the time that it was about the furtherance of Aston Villa. It was about them being on a more sound financial footing. Are you now looking at thinking, do you know what? We've made it. You've already done well. Let's be honest. You're already in the quarterfinals. Even if you went out now, it's a good campaign. You'd rather now go for that silverware because it's been so long for Villa fans.
I think the difference between this season and last season is that Villa have got the depth this season to fight on multiple fronts, whereas last season we were really tailing off around this point. Injuries were killing us. At this current time, Villa only have 1 first-team player injured. Suddenly players are starting to come back now, and you look at some of the players that Villa are bringing into football matches now, and they're real high-level players that can come on and impact games. We've got Marco Asensio coming off the bench in the Champions League. It's ridiculous. So I believe we're built more this season to do everything. Like if we win the FA Cup, there's no reason why we still can't finish top 5. Whereas in the end last season, I felt like the Conference League was starting to catch up with us. Also, I look at the FA Cup as being a bigger trophy than the Conference League. The Conference League is relatively new. Yeah. So that was one of my main reasons that I felt Champions League was more important last season to get the top 4, because the Conference League, as much as it would have been great to win a trophy, in my head it's not as important as perhaps other trophies.
Mark, it's funny, isn't it? When you look at that FA Cup draw, I think the thing about the FA Cup here as well is the fact that there's only Man City left out of those, traditional big 6. Aston Villa, even I think with the bookies, are probably second favourite to go on and win that as well. And I think because it's so tangible, that must be why Dan is there going, do you know what, out of all of this, it's been such a brilliant season, but you've got to go. But you always want
what you don't have. And you've got the Champions League qualification, you're playing in that, and so well, what's next then?
Yeah.
The next thing is, the FA Cup. I think we take it for granted here, but it's globally, it's the tournament people think about when they think of English football still. Like, it's a real iconic bit of silverware. And of course you want to win that. And you look at that draw, and Man City are favourites, but I don't really know why. Cause
they've got Bournemouth, haven't they? Which is a tough game. They've already lost there this season.
Yeah.
Man City, I just said a minute ago, Villa could beat anyone. Man City could lose to anybody. Like, that can happen. We've seen them this season be so inconsistent. If I'm a Villa fan or a Bournemouth fan or whatever, I feel like, if not now, then when? This is a real opportunity now.
Forest as well.
Can we stop talking about how good Forest are? I'm a Derby fan.
But they're third and they're deep in the cup, aren't they? Like people, I think they're going to get Champions League.
But we'll come on to Derby's Championship relegation battle a bit later.
That'll be exciting for everyone.
No, you're right to bring up Forest, though. I mean, obviously take the mick out of them or whatnot, being a Derby fan, but they are just brilliant. They're a brilliant side this season.
What's funny is with Forest, I've spoken to a couple of their fans. Obviously, they don't speak for everyone, but it's the same question I had for you last time with do you want Champions League or do you want to win the FA Cup? And I think with Forest it's slightly different because they have that pedigree of Europe. They have, those 2 European trophies that they won. I think getting back into Europe and hearing that Champions League music that you were talking about earlier, Dan, I think might, for some Forest fans, actually take precedence even over going on and winning an FA Cup. But to be honest, they're so well placed to get top 4 now.
Yeah, they really are.
That actually,
they'll do it.
I think they could go for both.
Yeah.
If they really wanted to, because just see Mark just melt over there on the left.
I'm not getting involved.
Just can't believe what he's hearing. I just want to go back to Marcus Rashford. We're going to talk about Thomas Tuchel picking his England squad a bit later, so we will go into more detail on this. But given what you've seen so far of him for Aston Villa, I still think it would obviously be a bit of a surprise pick. But do you think he should be in that squad? Do you think he deserves it?
I think it's a bit soon. He has probably started 3 or 4 games. I think there's not enough sample size at the moment to put him in the England squad. As much as I'm enjoying watching him and he's been a breath of fresh air for Villa, I think it's too early to put him in that England squad. Do
you think he's in that 55 player list that Tuchel's put together?
I'd say probably is. Tuchel will be interested in him and be thinking, right, well, he's playing. If he gets firing, he can be a really dangerous weapon. Tuchel's thinking about one tournament, isn't he? He'd want to take Marcus Rashford to a tournament, I would think. But at the moment, I think
he performs next season,
I think it's a little bit too soon at the moment to be calling him up for the English squad.
What do you think,
maybe
Mark?
summer.
Do you think he should be in there?
Well, last summer, I think we were really lacking on that left-hand side. We took Anthony Gordon, didn't really play him, 6 minutes, whatever he got. And what we needed was a Rashford from a couple of years ago. And that's sort of what we're seeing now. I know Dan says he hasn't scored yet this season. Fine. But he's been creating, he's been, getting assists, been looking dangerous. He's been frightening the life out of fullbacks. If you could just have that type of Marcus Rashford on the bench, in the squad, whatever, I think I probably would have him in. Not right now, but let's say end of the season. If he continues doing what he's doing now, I can see a good case for him being in the squad.
I think he's probably got a player at Villa blocking him, because I think Rodgers is an option for England down that left-hand side, and he's obviously done it all season, has recently made his England debut. I think it's probably out of Rodgers and Gordon for the left-hand side at the moment.
On the left all season for Villa?
No, he's played probably as a central 10, but for England, if you look at the players England have, I think his best way into the team is on the left, and he has played games on the left for Villa. I think in international football, coming from that left-hand side, the way he bulldozes, I think
I just want an England manager to play players in the position they play week in, week out, please.
I think Tuchel will. Tuchel will, I think Tuchel will.
Surely,
I love Rodgers. I think he's.
Has he been your player of the season?
No,
Rodgers?
Tielemans.
Tielemans.
Rodgers will get I think Rodgers is up there for PFA Young Player of the Year potentially. I can't think of anyone else unless I'm missing someone obvious that would be ahead of him in the entirety of the Premier League to win that
Rodgers
award.
has been good though.
But Mate Tillemans has played every game.
Yeah,
just been absolutely brilliant. I can't tell you how good he has been.
Oh, amazing stuff.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.